Well, I watched it. Did you watch it? I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted. I'm ashamed of those moderators at ABC News. They did exactly what their bosses wanted them to do. The person who runs ABC News is a close personal friend of Kamala Harris, that is responsible for Kamala Harris and her husband meeting. And they did Dana Walden's bidding tonight. It was 3 against 1 on that debate stage this evening. Hi, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly, a special program tonight for you reacting to the debate. It was 3 against 1. It's very easy to look like you know what you're doing when both moderators are entirely on your side. Trump did the best he could under the circumstances, but it really was like 3 fighters in the ring pummeling one opponent. And Trump tried to take them all on. He did fine. He did as best as he could. He was thrown a few times to the point where he was unnecessarily defensive and he was getting angry. And so was I. Were you? This was a mistake to trust ABC News with this debate. The Republicans must learn from this mistake. The same way the Democrats never agree to do anything with moderators they don't entirely trust. This should be the last time the Republicans ever do this. Because those 2 moderators tried to sink Donald Trump tonight. The numerous fact checks on what he said and none on what she said. None. I don't remember a single fact check of anything she said, and she lied repeatedly. She just got away with it. In the moderator's eyes, that was Donald Trump's job to fact check her. That's correct, except you didn't employ that same tactic when it came to Trump, and you accused him of lying even when it was your opinion that he lied. When Trump tried to say that his comment that he lost 2020 by a whisker was him being sarcastic, David Muir actually injected saying, I didn't hear sarcasm. Who gives a shit what you heard? Who died and left you political analyst in chief? You're supposed to be the objective news anchor of World News Tonight. That's a comment you make to your significant other, David, not on the debates. It didn't sound like that to me. Shut up. That is inappropriate. It's not for you to make that call. Leave it up to Kamala Harris. Leave it up to people like me who will play the soundbite and let the audience decide. But you were out of line, and they did it to him over and over and over again. And the worst piece of all of this is the obvious tactic by ABC News, which was as follows. Mr. Trump, you said something incredibly controversial and terrible. Let me remind you of what it was. Do you have any regrets or thoughts on how terrible you were? Trump answers. Vice President Harris, how bad is Trump? And then she'd answer. It happened over and over again. That was the format. Mr. Trump, you're a piece of shit. Kamala Harris, isn't he a shit? Thank you. It was incredible. And then anything Trump said, fact check, fact check, fact check. And their fact checks were full of shit. I'm swearing even more than normal right now because I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm angry at them, at ABC, at my industry that I want nothing to do with. And I've never been happier to be outside and be able to say how I truly feel. And yes, even with some colorful words, because that's what the situation calls for. They're trying to steal this election. They're openly working to sink him. I think it was so bad, their bias against him and toward her, that it's going to backfire. I actually think the American public is going to see through this, and there's probably going to be some empathy for Trump. No fair-minded person could think anything other than that they were in the tank for him, and it was 3 against 1 on that stage tonight. Joining me to discuss it, Emily Jashinsky, D.C. correspondent for Unheard, and Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief of National Review. I've never seen anything like it, Rich. I've never seen anything quite so biased at the presidential debate level.
well, continues a theme of this race, right? They've been completely in the tank for Kamala Harris, and the moderators on the debate stage were completely in the tank for Kamala Harris. And you knew where the night was going when we got the first fact check when Trump was talking about abortion and was talking about, he misspoke in this instance. He got it right later when he said the West Virginia governor, he meant the former Virginia governor, had talked about you can have abortions after birth, right? And he didn't say in any state has abortions after birth. He just said the governor had said this, which is a correct statement. And then he's fact checked by saying, well, Mr. Trump, there's no state in America that has abortion after 9 months. Actually, there are a few instances in Minnesota. He was correct about that as well. But this is the point. The fact check was incorrect, right? And this is why debate moderators shouldn't fact check. You know, the CNN moderators did not fact check because what you think the fact is in that moment may be subjective, you may be wrong, and you're tilting the playing field. And certainly to fact check one candidate and never fact check the other. She did the Charlottesville lie, the both sides are fine people lie, no fact check. She did the bloodbath lie. He clearly didn't mean that, you know, the country is going to be, there are going to be riots in the street if he's not elected. It was an economic statement, no fact check. So the moderators were a disgrace. It's one of the reasons Trump seemed on defensive a lot of the night. One was he took a lot of bait from Kamala Harris that he didn't need to. The other was the horrendous moderation.
Agree. He took bait he shouldn't have taken. He was defending himself on the pandemic. He was on his heels instead of going on offense and pivoting off of the bad point for him onto something that was more offensive. That was a tactical error by him. But I do want to just spend a minute on this fact check you just mentioned. Here it is. Here's the moment we're referring to where Lindsey Davis helpfully fact checked Trump on this abortion claim.
They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Okay, that's not true. And maybe she can use the word kill. It's not like somebody's sticking a knife in the dead baby, in the live baby as it's dying, Emily. But you and I both know that in places like Minnesota and elsewhere, if you are trying to abort a baby in the 9th month or otherwise, and it's born instead of dying in the mother's womb, they will let that baby sit on the table and die. And Trump's claim, though Rich is right, he said at first West Virginia, later he corrected himself to Virginia. Their former governor, Ralph Northam, said this on camera, admitted to this. Here is the soundbite.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So
I'll give you one other. Roger Severino, he's with the Heritage Foundation, tweeting out the following. Harris, and as it turns out, Lindsey Davis is dead wrong. Some babies do survive abortions and can be saved, but are denied life-saving treatment, including under Tim Walz's watch. Harris even voted against the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act that would have defended the lives of these babies, their right to live once born. Unconscionable. Trump didn't say any of that, okay? He tried. But the nerve of this moderator to inject herself into it without any of this.
Here's what I find especially infuriating about that. She editorialized with all of the sanctimony in the world to say that word, to focus in on that word, quote, execute. I don't know if she knows any of the context that you just provided, which is all completely accurate and known to people who follow the news closely, unless you're in a total bubble and aren't doing your job, which is obviously the case here. But she chose to editorialize and say, it's not true. You can't execute. You can't kill babies. I mean, actually, it depends on whether or not you consider having a baby who could be cared for, born alive, and then left without care. If you don't consider that an execution, okay. But she is injecting here to quibble editorially And she doesn't have a leg to stand on this particular issue. There were obvious moments where Kamala Harris could have been fact-checked just as any candidate could. I don't object to them fact-checking Donald Trump. I object to them fact-checking, as Rich said, period. We didn't, after that CNN debate about Biden, talk about the moderators for a lot of reasons, namely because of Biden, but we also really saw them sink into the background of that debate. It was the opposite in this case. They were constantly injecting themselves, constant fact checks. Didn't get a fact check on IVF, Project 2025, as Abigail Schreier pointed out. Nothing on Charlottesville, even when Snopes had fact-checked what Joe Biden was saying about Charlottesville that Kamala Harris repeated. Nothing on abortion, nothing on that bloodbath comment. They just let it all go and just went straight for Trump. It was all him, none her, nothing, not one fact check on Kamala Harris.
But Emily, what you point out gets to the insanity of it. If she was going to be strictly accurate in her fact check, she would have said, well, it's not technically an execution because you're not affirmatively killing the child. Instead, after the child's born, you're just giving the child comfort care and not the medical care that might be necessary to save him or her. That's an opinion, right? That's a debate answer. And so, but instead they do it under the guise of a fact check, which gives it this authority it doesn't deserve, that they're using that by the grace of them sitting there as moderators. It's a total abuse of their role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the same thing on Trump's attempt to claim that when he said on a podcast that he lost the 2020 election by a whisker, I said this on my show today, you guys. I said, if I were asking the questions tonight, I would ask him about that. And about the fact that he said on a podcast last week he lost by a whisker. And you should bring that up. And that's fine to bring that up, which they did. And I was actually surprised by Trump's answer. I was being sarcastic. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know that he was being sarcastic in that answer either. I didn't detect the sarcasm myself. That's not appropriate as a fact check. David Muir, here's the moment.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
All right, we'll recut that with the actual response from David Muir, which was, I didn't detect any sarcasm. That's opinion. That's opinion, Emily. And it is not up to the debate moderator to be saying, I don't quite believe you. That's what he's saying. I didn't believe your answer. Who gives a flying fig what David Muir thinks of Trump's answer?
And that's why these moderators getting into the business of live fact-checking debates is a farce. And in this case, it was so obviously a farce because not once did they attempt to do the same thing to Kamala Harris. And it was interesting because in the first half of the debate, Kamala Harris came out, she seemed maybe a little nervous. Donald Trump seemed like, he thought that she would be easier to debate than she actually was. And, he took the bait a couple of times from her. She baited him into talking about his rallies, when he probably shouldn't have been litigating the size of his rallies. But then as the media fact checks started piling up, and as it became clearer and clearer that the editorial line from ABC News, from the leadership that is very close to Kamala Harris, as you point out, Megyn, they said that there was an editorial firewall in this case, which was obviously not true. That bled all the way down into this debate, and that became increasingly obvious. And that's where Donald Trump picked up steam. He was, he I thought came across as a little overly defensive and angry in the first half of the debate. But as the media performance started to get more and more egregious, he actually really, really did start picking up steam. So even by their own objectives, they're too dumb. They're too dumb to actually fulfill their own their own objectives, which we all know is that they want to destroy Donald Trump, because this ends up helping him when it may not have been a good debate for him, period. Now the big conversation coming out of the Trump camp is going to be an entirely reasonable one about what a joke the media was. So the big loser here, and I mean bigger than Donald Trump in this case, is ABC News. Because now, I think all of the networks, to your point, Megyn, might be losing access to debates from Republicans going forward. They should.
They must. They must. And just one final point on the fact check, the so-called fact check by this Lindsay Davis. Here, it's even more egregious and annoying when she's like, okay, There's no state in this union that allows a baby to be killed after being born. Or like if you do it, with the right body language, like it's very hard to deal with this lying liar who lies all the time, but I will handle it because I work for ABC News. And meanwhile, she's the one lying. It's just so infuriating to watch, right? You can't, if Trump agrees to another debate on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, maybe not CNN, because he did okay on the last one. He deserves what he gets. He deserves what he gets. Because Team Kamala tonight, right now, Rich, is saying, let's have another debate. Is he up for it? She's up for it. Let's have another one. Because now she's feeling good, and she's been reminded that her little pets in the media will run cover for her. They're even better than her emotional support governor. She's got an emotional support team out there now in the form of Muir and Davis, and she would have the same thing if this were an NBC or a CBS debate as well. So Trump, I don't know what he'll do. Should he do another debate?
I think he should. I don't think this one went very well for him. I mean, he always seems vigorous, right, and vivid. He just has that presence that you can't fake, and that you see has naturally. And he made his points over and over again on the border, the economy, that she's been there for 3.5 years. But he was vague. He was repetitive. And I think, she was overly rehearsed. Obviously, she's extremely rehearsed, but she got her points across. And I think they're probably delighted with her performance tonight. As we said, a lot of help from the moderators. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Insta polls say that she won. I doubt it's decisive in the race, but they probably feel pretty good about what she did.
I have to tell you, I watched this seeing, yes, she scored some points. It was like watching a boxing match where you'd have to give her some technical points for landing points, articulating them. But I do not think she won the debate. I actually don't think so, because I think your average viewer at home understands it was 3 against 1 and would have a national sympathy for Donald Trump. Like, nobody likes that. They don't like an unfair contest. And I also thought her ridiculous preening and facial expressions and tisking and harumphing over on screen right were a massive turnoff. And that all happened, especially in the first 20 minutes of the debate, when people are watching more than they are as the debate goes on. We actually pulled a bit of a montage of some of these faces, I think. Let's take a look. All right, so it's video. Look at her. The hand under the chin. Oh, gee, go on. Oh, do tell. Do tell. All right. It went on like this for a while.
Yeah, the Democrats haven't done very well.
The scowling. And here's the other thing, Rich. As it turns out, we'll just keep playing this, but as it turns out, she's the one who needed the mic muted. She's the one who kept trying to interrupt. She's the one who should be happy that they wound up muting it, because she was the interrupting cow, not Trump.
Yeah. So the Democrats have had some trouble with their on camera, not speaking moments. With Biden, it was the mouth just hanging agape, which wasn't a good look. And this was a terrible look. She got it under control a little later, but it was just awful at the beginning. And she repeatedly tried to interrupt, even though her mic wasn't on. And that led to a good Trump moment where he did the "I'm speaking, please." Does that sound familiar? Kind of needling her with that line she used half a dozen times in the debate with Mike Pence.
But wait, I'm going to give you one more reason why I don't think she did well. And it was the personal insults, because I don't think American women, who they're all trying to get at home, are going to respond favorably to the repeated personal insults she hurled at him in virtually every answer. She was small and she was petty, and he didn't respond. He didn't take much bait. Maybe here or there he dropped a word, but she was like a dog with a bone in her trying to attack him personally. It was unseemly. Here's a few examples.
World leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. It is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. Why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
It went on. We could have pulled more. And I wonder, I mean, again, on points, I don't know that Trump would win this debate. But on style, Emily, I think she was a massive turnoff.
That's interesting, because there were also a couple of moments where she, the race question in particular, where they asked Donald Trump why he said that she used to be Indian and now she's black. And then they turned the question to Kamala Harris. And like we saw her do in the Dana Bash interview, I thought she did a good job of not getting into the identity politics trap. I thought there were a couple of moments where she was clearly scripted in the right direction. But on the dictator one, Democrats think that is very much like a dog with a bone. And I think average Americans watch that and they're like, what are you talking about? What we want, historically, what we've seen happen successfully is for our leaders to actually cut deals and to actually engage with, talking about how you're so cool because you just ignore people who can stop wars no matter how bad they are. I just think that is a really dumb line of attack, and it's clearly one that they love and that they think is brilliant. And so I thought she looked pretty silly in that particular exchange, especially because, to your point, Megan, she was really, on that one, wound up. She felt like this was a slam dunk and it was not even a layup.
On that question you mentioned in your answer about the racial identity, Trump pointing out, when did she become black? I mean, this was a thing online for some members of the black community. They've been speaking out about it, saying, we're the ones who raised this. We don't think she's black. She always leaned into her Indian heritage. And Trump picked up on it. Maybe somebody fed it to him. I don't know. And that's when he made his comments. And even tonight, they're all over the internet saying, we're the ones who raised it, not Donald Trump. But in any event, so they elevate this. It's already come up, right? Trump's already been asked about it at the NABJ. That's where he said it. He was followed up. He's been asked about it in interviews. She was asked about it in her sit down with CNN. And I'll tell you, as a debate moderator, you factor all that in on whether you're going to raise it on the debate stage. Has it already been responded to? Has it already been? How long has the controversy, been over? This would not have risen to the level. It would. Children are actually having their body parts chopped off right now by the Democrats. I feel like that deserved a question. Like little girls are having their faces pummeled and going into permanent brain damage because of boys playing. Maybe they could deserve one question instead of raising this thing over and over again. But here's how they did it. Mr. Trump, you're horrid. Here's what you said. Vice President Kamala Harris, would you like to comment on how terrible he is? That was their MO. Here it is.
Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
I mean, the playbook, Rich, it worked beautifully. Who couldn't look good out there with those two moderators doing that for her?
Yeah, that was a classic instance of the dynamic, challenging question to Trump, and then to Kamala, what do you think about this terrible thing? He said, and so there was about, I don't know, I didn't have a timer on it, but it felt from the initial questions, after the initial questions on the economy, I thought Trump was quite good on that. Then we get abortion, we get January 6th, we get election denial, we get this. It felt like 45 minutes straight. It was on terrain that was not favorable to Donald Trump. And of course, not all terrain is going to be favorable to Donald Trump, and he created some of those problems for himself. But it felt like a very long time. And as you say, none of these things that would challenge Kamala Harris like the thing that just emerged. Talk about something's new. You said as you pointed out, the answer about the Trump statement about her racial identity is old, but we just had the CNN getting the ACLU's scorecard or a questionnaire where she said that she supported the government paying for gender transforming surgery on illegal immigrants in detention is new. Like it broke a day or two ago, right? Did they ask her about that? No, they didn't.
Not one question about that.
She also put on her website, finally, when she came out with her policy agenda, it says right there, plain as day, that she supports the Equality Act. And the Equality Act advances all of the awful mistreatment of young girls that we've just been talking about here. So she just puts this agenda out. It's a pretty obvious question. The CNN story comes out as well, and you get absolutely nothing. You get Donald Trump bringing it up, but nobody else seemed to have any interest in the story at all, despite the fact that Kamala Harris has been a champion of these very policies.
They don't care, and they don't understand the right half of the country. There weren't any questions designed to test whether she's too far left for the right half of this country, and frankly, for the left half of this country. All of the questions were trying to expose how radical he is, how bad he is. It's incredible that they ignored the CNN report, this K-file report in which they exposed, yes, she had told the ACLU that she wanted to make taxpayers pay for gender transition surgeries for criminally convicted illegal immigrants. Can you get more radical than that? That she wanted to take away funding from ICE at the border. There were so many things. Oh, that she wants to legalize all drugs. She wants to legalize all drugs, including fentanyl and heroin. She wants to. Where was the question about that? Instead, we got two on the 2020 election, one on climate change, and ridiculous comments like the one here in number 11. Watch SOT 11.
Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people.
Oh, my God.
So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
So I don't have a problem with bringing up that Trump post. It's newsworthy. It's important. But the way the question is framed is, do you agree with your own campaign, Madam Vice President? And going back to the ACLU questionnaire, this perversely, it plays into their sense of superiority that you've been hitting on, because they think they're so good at their job. And so above it all, they don't know about that, or they don't bother to understand how important it is. So they let it go. And they think that shows how great they are. They don't fall for this right wing stuff. You know, they're all in good standing with the blob and only ask blob questions. But it really shows how terrible they are at their job and how they aren't to be trusted. And if Trump's going to do another debate, maybe he should insist that after they ask the question, that the moderators' mics are muted.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do another debate. I'll host it. I'll moderate it. I can do it by myself. I can't stand Kamala Harris, but I would be so fair. I would be so hard on Trump today. I said I read a list of questions I would ask Donald Trump, and they were not easy. You at least need somebody who, no matter what their strong bias or how they're going to vote, tries to be tough on both sides. This just in. Emily, because I guess she decided, this will be fun to crap on him when he's down, when she perceives him as down. Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris. Taylor Swift, she posts a picture of herself with her cat. Would you look at this? You can, of course. You can kiss your sails to the Republican audience goodbye, Taylor. Hope you enjoyed them while you had them. And this is what she posts. Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now's a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about the proposed policies, etc. Recently, I was made aware that an AI of me falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to its site, blah, blah, blah. And the simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I am voting for Kamala because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she's a steady-handed, gifted leader. And I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of her running mate, Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. Oh, my God. So this woman is fine with his plan to take custody of the children from parents who don't want them to chop off their body parts and put them in Minnesota court's custody so the body parts can be chopped off and they can be sterilized outside the custody of their parents. That's what led Taylor Swift to endorse him. Can I tell you something? I criticized her about 6 months ago when she came out strongly in favor of, she went to a fundraiser to raise money for Hamas, supposedly Palestinians, but the group that was doing the fundraising was known to funnel the money to Hamas. And I said, people should boycott her. It was an offhanded comment. People went nuts. Some lunatic dropped a note in my personal mailbox outside my house begging me not to boycott Taylor Swift, as though I have that power. I'm allowed to criticize Taylor Swift, and I don't give a shit who gets upset. This is disgusting. If she wants to vote Harris Walz, she can do it all she wants. But to say the reason she's doing it is because of Tim Walz's stance on LGBTQ, F you, Taylor Swift, and F all of the people who want to see these children have body parts chopped off and watch them sterilized under the age of consent, and then will ride off to their multi-gazillion-dollar mansions, never to think of them again. Emily, this is unbelievable. The left is losing its mind. She signed it Taylor Swift, childless cat lady.
Oh, how cute. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly, it's not just that she's okay with everything you just described. It's that she actually actively supports it. And yet we can't even get a damn question about things like the Radical Equality Act or the CNN Gender Transitions for Undocumented Immigrants report. We can't even get one question about it. But Taylor Swift is going to get applauded for coming out and endorsing this ticket for the reason of Tim Walz's LGBT policies and Kamala Harris's LGBT policies, which again, if you go to her website, cites very clearly that the cornerstone of it is basically the Equality Act, which is a radical piece of legislation. The vast majority of the country, the audiences of all of the glossy magazines that are now about to clap for Taylor Swift and Yas Queen her, the people that read those magazines don't like this stuff. They don't know about it because the media won't ask a freaking question about it in a debate. But Taylor Swift is also doing this, it should be noted, because Brittany Mahomes came out just a few days ago. She's been saying she supports Donald Trump. She liked a Trump post on Instagram, got a ton of heat for it. They were sitting apart from each other at the Chiefs game, and all of the speculation was bubbling up about whether they had broken their friendship over Donald Trump. Then they sat together again at the US Open, and Taylor Swift got all kinds of heat for being friends with a Trump supporter, and now she rolls out an endorsement right after the debate. That is absolutely not a coincidence. It's a calculated public relations move.
This pair, Taylor and her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, are the epitomes of elite snobs. They both have gazillions of dollars. She doesn't care what happens to these kids, just like he doesn't give a shit what happens to all the young men who take that Pfizer booster he's been pushing on them. I'm sure he's totally fucking clueless about the myocarditis taking the lives of young men in this country who didn't need the shot to begin with, never mind a booster. Where's Travis Kelce going to be? Because those are his fans. Where's he going to be when these boys wind up with heart scarring that causes heart attacks and potentially death? They will be sitting in their mansions in Rhode Island and California and New York and jetting across the world saying, let them eat cake, because they'll be bathing themselves in their own sanctimony, too obsessed with their money and their concerts and their football games to have a thought for those they've hurt. Okay. It's just another night after a regular debate hosted by regular moderators in a regular media world. Emily and Rich,
I thought you started
love you guys.
I thought you started hot at the beginning, Megan, but really you saved it for the end.
I actually am kind of hot. I don't know. Is it menopause? I'm not sure what it is. I'm angry.
You need a cat.
You guys, it's great. Yeah, I need a cat. Somebody get Strudwick in here. That's all I can handle. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Megan.
We're going to be back with the host of the morning meeting. This is Mark Halpern's group that he's been doing. We brought them to you recently, and I can't wait to hear what they're saying. First, though, did you know there is nearly $1 trillion? I'm thinking 3 against 1. That's why this is in my head. There's nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds yet to be spent. That's right. A massive amount of money that the lame duck administration is pushing hard to spend in their last few months. If the president's able to push these funds out, we could see another prolonged inflation surge, just like we did during COVID. But there's hope. A gold IRA from Birch Gold Group can be an inflation hedge for your savings in uncertain times. To see how to protect your IRA or 401k, get your free info kit on gold by texting the word MK to 989898. Birch Gold makes it seamless to roll over your retirement account while preserving your tax-advantaged status. Don't wait for the president's spending spree to potentially tank the dollar further. Protect your financial future now. Text MK to the number 989898 for your free info kit from Birch Gold. Oh, we're still here. Sorry. Sorry, guys. And we're going to bring on the 3 hosts of the morning meeting, a fast-growing interactive show on the Two-Way YouTube channel. Mark Halpern is editor-in-chief of Two-Way. Sean Spicer is a former White House press secretary and host of the Sean Spicer Show. And Tim Hogan is a Democratic political consultant. Guys, welcome. Mark, what were your thoughts on tonight?
Pretty much agree with you. I mean, I thought she was a C+, except on abortion, where she was A, and A+ on baiting Trump. Trump took the bait repeatedly. But the real story is the moderators, as you suggested. They fact-checked Trump. They didn't fact-check her. They chose topics, including abortion, that would help her. When she baited Trump and Trump switched topics, they switched topics to ask her on immigration. And all their questions were poorly formed. And they asked a bunch of yes-no questions, which they shouldn't do. When they asked her semi-tough questions, she changed the subject, didn't answer at all. They just moved on. So to me, it might affect voters. It probably won't. But if Trump's goal, which it is to define her as weak, failed, and dangerously liberal, he was weak and failed in doing that. And so he missed his opportunity. And I'm not saying it means he's going to lose, but he was horrible. And he lost literally every round of the debate, in part because the moderators were just so ridiculously pro-Harris.
It was like, I mean, they had fire hoses against him. There was so much that Trump had to try to bat down. He did what he could, but no human would have been capable of handling the number of lies she was saying. And go ahead, Mark. What were you going to say?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to make clear, though, he was horrible. Sure, it was stacked against him. What did you think was horrible about it? But he had to come in knowing that. He got baited every time, talking about people leaving his events, talking about people eating cats. Talking about his criminal cases, talking about race. The moderators and Harris spent the night trying to bait him into talking about stuff that wasn't about her record. He barely talked about her record. He talked more about Joe Biden's record. So I agree that the moderators controlled the stage and they made it horrible, but he was horrible and didn't do himself any favors, even in the face of unfair moderators.
Sean Spicer, you're shaking your head. Why?
Well, first of all, I just want to congratulate the big winner tonight, Candy Crowley. She now is erased as the worst moderator in history, and David Muir gets to take on that honor. Look, if you look at the first half of the debate, which is where I think most Americans were paying attention, Trump was spot on, really going after immigration, talking about the threat that we faced. I don't disagree with Mark that a lot of the times he was baited. He focused on responding to her, which he shouldn't have. His classic line of the night, "You've had 3 years and you haven't done anything," came too far into the debate. I will agree with that. But it was, he landed a lot of punches, reminding people about immigration, the effects of it, and contrasting his record on the economy with hers. There were too many parts at the end of the debate. Yeah, it was 3-on-1. I mean, you start to look at race, climate change, abortion, Obamacare. I mean, it felt like a night at the DNC.
January 6th and election denialism, both.
Yeah, both. I mean, exactly.
Look,
both got up there. And
DNC.
then when she lied, and there were lots of lies, but here's just, so we played some of what they would do to Trump, right? Like they would fact check him with fact checks that were not true. And look what did they do when Kamala Harris is up there misleading, all right? It came up about the BLM riots. Trump raised it. Of course, the moderators didn't raise her support for bailing out the protesters. But look at this, SOT 10.
She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this.
So she's shaking her head no when he's saying she bailed out these criminals. This is her tweet. This is her tweet. Kamala Harris tweeted it out on 6/1/20. If you're able to, chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. This is exactly what he was referring to. If she had a defense on it, we didn't get to hear it because the moderators did not follow up. They moved on. Miss Fact Checker Lindsay Davis, Mr. Fact Checker David Muir had no interest in actually following up and saying, here's the tweet, madam. You did. You shook your head no. You did it. And as to the allegation about the illegals and the sex change operations, that was reporting that CNN had exclusively on the K-File yesterday. You filled it out in an ACLU questionnaire. How can you shake your head no, you didn't do it? Where was that fact check, Sean?
Yeah. I mean, on issue after issue, it was, we're going to say, and by the way, the quote fact checks that they did against Donald Trump were wrong. The Virginia governor, Ralph Northam, a former doctor, did say exactly what Donald Trump said he said. Whether or not that abortions are performed at that late stage is quite another issue. The Virginia governor said exactly what Donald Trump said. There are reports. We actually online now. The issue of those issues in Ohio have come out. So issue after issue, they fact checked them incorrectly.
Yeah, that's the thing, leaving the audience with the appearance that he didn't know what he was talking about. And he was lying repeatedly, which she kept saying, and it played beautifully for her. Tim, what are your thoughts on tonight?
Yeah, I guess, look, hearing all of this, you kind of would think that like Donald Trump has no agency in this situation, that if the bait is set and he takes it, he is a victim in that situation. We got fact checks on questions like Sean noted. There is no state where it's legal to kill a baby. Right. And if you make that fact check and it is something inserted at the end of an answer to tell the viewer. But if that is the case, is that really? Let me ask you something, Tim.
Let me ask you a question. In Minnesota,
very quick, one second.
Let me ask you a question.
I will just say, go ahead.
I'm fact checking you. In Minnesota, if they are trying to abort a baby and the baby is born, notwithstanding the abortion, it's born alive. Are you aware that it is legal for them to just let the baby sit on the table and die? They do not have to get medical care. Do you know that?
But the way that Donald Trump is describing it is like women are making a decision where they have a baby, and then
so
they
you
say,
didn't deny it.
That's
what we're referring to when we say it's legal to kill the baby post-birth. The Republicans tried to pass a federal bill that would make you provide medical care, not just comfort care.
But I will just say,
and the Democrats killed it.
Okay. I will just say, this is part of the reason why the dials testing for Democrats, or at least what we're hearing from the Biden campaign, is the best on this issue, is because Republicans talk about it in this way. I will just say, too, on the bias question with ABC, he had about 6 to 7 extra minutes to answer questions. And that may be the worst things that the moderators actually did for Donald Trump, is actually give him extra time to speak, because he couldn't stay on message, because he followed every trap and every rabbit hole she set for him. And when he set one for her, which was pretty gross, and I'm glad she didn't take it, that she puts out, which is fairly disgusting thing to say, she made it a question about decency larger for the country. So, like, I guess my point on the bias is these people have agency. You can choose to answer the questions you want. When you're answering a question about China, don't talk about how you love Xi. Don't take the bait on your rallies being emptied. Don't say that you would not necessarily veto an abortion ban. Don't refer to the rioters at January 6th as we. Don't give an incoherent answer on energy and oil. Don't talk about eating people's pets.
And Tim,
one more I'd add that.
Say you want Ukraine to beat Russia. He wouldn't say he wanted Ukraine to beat Russia.
It is.
Well, I understood why he said. I understood why he didn't say what he said about Ukraine, because let me tell you guys, in the Republican Party, they're over Ukraine. They're done. They're done funneling money to this country. They believe that the war is already lost and that it will not be won by Ukraine, and that what needs to be said is, let's face reality. They've already lost, and Donald Trump understands that. And that is why he answered the way he did on Ukraine. But the thing about the pets in Springfield, can we just spend a minute on that? Because Trump was right. We've seen first-person testimonials by residents there saying, yes, they took ducks out of the pond and beheaded them to eat them. We've seen Facebook posts with a woman claiming that a cat had been stolen and that they saw their family cat strung up the way you'd string up a deer, and that it was clearly being skinned and prepared to be eaten. And all we have in response is the city manager vaguely saying that he doesn't believe these things are true. But these have been debunked. They're not true. I'm telling you, that's not what happened. So once again, you have David Muir with his attempted fact check, and Trump was right to say, I've seen the people themselves offering these testimonials. This has been unresolved at best. This has not been resolved in favor of the city manager. Go ahead, Mark. Oh,
Megan,
wait, I'm sorry. I'll give you the floor. But let me just make clear. The reason this is relevant is because it's Haitian migrants who have come to the city and are accused of doing these things. Go ahead.
But let's say it's 100% true. And we don't know. We don't know that it's false, but we don't know how true it is, right? Let's say it's 100% true. Is that really the best way for Donald Trump to have it out over the negative effects of illegal immigrants in this country? Is that really the best way? When there's many examples of
about Laken Riley again.
Murders? Correct. He should have said to her, Madam Vice President, tell us the story of Laken Riley and what it means to you. Fighting about dogs and ducks when there's actual concrete examples. It's testament to how easily he was baited, and how, as much as the moderators were absolutely against him, he did himself no favors.
Tim, what are you hearing amongst Democrats? Like, are they euphoric tonight? They feel like this is a crushing, because now she's out there saying, let's have another debate. Let's have lots of debates.
Yeah. I'm trying to put my best poker face on here for how good I feel, So I think people are happy with how the debate turned out. I think, look, there's a little bit of euphoria on the Democratic side right now for how well this debate went. But I think people come back down to earth very quickly, understanding that, yes, this is the largest bipartisan audience we're probably going to get that's going to be able to see the two of them on stage. But this is going to be a really, really close race. And it's going to remain that way after this debate. So even when it feels like a slam dunk on either side, we still are where we are. I did note that, Brian Fallon tweeted that they were happy with the debate. They're looking forward to doing it again in October. So I said this morning, I lean towards a second debate will happen. I still believe that.
There was not a single question about. Yeah, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
Because I would just be careful what you wish for. I think that at best this debate is a push. I think the Kamala Harris folks I think the people who were supporting her are probably excited. I think the conversations that I've had and the texts that I've had with folks on Team Trump think that he did exactly what he needed to do. People were looking at him to see if he would go over the top, if there was going to be name calling. Remember, there was bars set for each of them. And people were concerned that Trump was going to come out and call her names and talk over her or whatever. He actually flipped the script on her, as you played just a moment ago, when he said, I'm talking now, using that famous line that she used against Vice President Pence in the 2020 cycle. So I think that we have to judge this. The real audience here were those undecided, persuadable people in the 7 battleground states. And I don't really think, to be honest with you, that the needle got pushed a lot for either candidate. Both sides got kind of what they wanted out of this debate. And if there's a second debate, there's more for her to lose than for him to gain.
Sean, you were on Rhode Island mushrooms.
You just mentioned.
You think he got what he wanted?
Let me just play stop 15 that Sean just referenced. Watch.
In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out. All
right. It was a good line. He had it ready. Almost everything she said was canned. Almost everything she said. I mean, and she did a good job of memorizing her lines.
I I'm so sorry to interrupt, but if that was his prepared line that landed that people are really excited about, man, I feel better about this debate.
You didn't like run spot Ron?
You
didn't like run spot Ron? I thought that was good early on.
That was all right.
The whole election is about him convincing people she's out of the mainstream. And he just didn't do it. I mean, there's just no evidence that he achieved that. I don't know. I don't think this wins the election for her. I don't think it loses it for him. But just, and again, 1 on 3 is not easy. But, he's got some individual lines you can play, but go back and review the transcript. Go back and watch the whole thing and find just how often he failed to do anything on his core mission of defining her as out of the mainstream.
Well, can I do the thing that's interesting?
He talked about Joe Biden.
Right when the debate started, and David Muir posed that 4-year, are you better off 4-year question to her. That was an opportunity for her. She didn't answer the question. But I also thought that he should have come right out of the gate and said, you're not better off 4 years ago, and contrasted his record right away. I think that was a missed opportunity. I'll give you that. But for anyone who is looking right when that debate started to see how she would answer the question, it was not a good answer on her behalf.
Her answers were horrible.
Here
but Sean,
is-
he didn't hold her accountable on that or on immigration.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I have to say, though, I had sympathy for Trump. I really did, because it was everywhere. It was coming at him from everywhere. She was hammering him. The questions that he was being asked in the principal sense were hammering him. The fake fact checks were hammering him. She was lying and there was no fact check. And then they turned to him and not let him respond and hit him with another controversy. I mean, it was an all pile on. And I felt for the guy. He's only human. This would have been tough. Look, I feel like this would have been tough for me, and I can argue these issues. I'm good at arguing these issues.
But MEGYN, are you the least bit surprised, though, MEGYN, that that's what happened? Are you the least bit surprised?
Yeah, I am. I actually thought that they'd go CNN route. I thought they'd go the Dana Bash, Jake Tapper route of, what are we going to do about Social Security? What are we going to do about the border? I didn't think they would be this biased. I thought they'd worry about their reputations. And now you're getting reaction like this, media reactions pouring in. I give you Chris Wallace.
I didn't think I was ever going to witness a debate as devastating as the one that you and Dana moderated back in June, where Joe Biden basically tanked his reelection campaign. I think tonight was just as devastating. I think that Kamala Harris pitched a shutout. On almost every subject I can think of. She shut Trump down on abortion. She shut Trump down on January 6th and democracy. She shut him down on national security and turned to the former president and said, the military leaders who served with you think that you're a disgrace. And then, as Dana mentioned, very powerfully at the end made the point that she is the candidate of change. We need to turn the page from a decade of division and polarization. On substance, I think she pitched a shutout, and I think she did on style as well.
I find that amazing. I think these Democrats are feeling good because they finally have a candidate who can argue, unlike the one we saw in the June debate. But I believe that this did not turn anything in her favor. And I actually do not think there's going to be a big bounce for her in the polls. And I think Trump remains on track to win this election. Mark, am I wrong?
I agree with everything but the last point. And I think the last point's only true if through the course of the campaign and advertising and his own events, he convinces the country that she's more out of the mainstream than he is. And he just didn't do that tonight. But I think if he does that, he'll win.
MEGYN, can I go back to one quick point you made about ABC? Because I think this is important to understand, at least from my perspective. I think ABC, for those of us who wanted to see fairness and looked at the CNN debate, I think for a lot of folks in the media and on the left, they didn't think that CNN did enough to go after Donald Trump. And when it comes to ABC, I think that they tried to fulfill what they believed their role was to their constituency, which was, you need to take on Donald Trump. They're going to get kudos from their colleagues and from the legacy media tonight because they felt as though they had to fulfill that role.
I think their boss is her best friend.
Yeah,
it's just not decisive either way. It's just not decisive either way to say he got fact-checked 3 times at the end of a question and therefore the whole debate is rigged. I just think it's overblown. And I think, you know, you can instill that feeling, I think, in a certain group of people, Trump's base, who may feel that. But I don't think that brings any new people in.
Just once, Tim, I want a Democrat to go through a debate like that with a supposedly neutral media organization and see how you feel about it. Just once.
You know what? Let me moderate it, and that's exactly what will happen to her. And I'll do it to him too. And I have a proven track record of being very, very tough on Republicans.
But Megan, if you
let me do it.
But Megan, if you did it, it wouldn't be like that because you would be tough on both sides. That's exactly my point right. Is being tough on right. But I'm saying let Tim and some Democrat he works for go to a debate that's 3-on-1 and see how the Democrats feel about it.
Where all the fact checking is against one candidate and there is none against the other. When all the controversial things that one candidate has done are teed up and he's hammered on it, and the next question is to his opponent saying, what do you think of that terrible controversy? As opposed to drilling down on her weak spots. It was the most egregious hour and 45 minutes of bias I have witnessed at any debate that I have witnessed. And I've witnessed and participated in a lot. Go ahead, Tim.
No, I was just going to say, and look, you can ask those questions. And as many people on debate stages have proven, you can answer those questions how you would like. And you can bait your opponent how you would like. And you can stay on message and you can drive a core vision of what you want to do. He just can't do that. And it is a problem for him, I think, uniquely in a way that he's such a highly reactive individual, right? So when he does get prodded in that way, he is at a disadvantage because I think there is something core in his DNA that he can't not take the bait in those situations. You know, my question though for Republicans walking out of this is like, what was the plan? And was this anywhere close to the plan? Like, what was the outcome supposed to be here? Did they, if this was the belief that there was a grievance that ABC would be biased, was there any preparation for that? Was there any thought to how he would duck and dodge and maneuver on the stage to deal with it? Or do you just go in and then complain afterwards?
Here is, can we play SOT 26? This is Trump in the spin room responding to her call for a second debate.
Why won't you commit to a second debate with Kamala Harris if you believe
a second debate because she lost tonight very badly? So they immediately called for a second debate because they lost. So we'll think about that. But she immediately called for a second. Look, we're looking at polls. We're looking at polls. The worst poll that we've had was 71 that I see, 71% to like 24 or 25%.
Okay, that's. I didn't hear a yes, unfortunately, because I would like to see it happen again. I'll leave you with this. Excellent job by the ABC News moderators. Signed, Jeffrey Toobin. He really liked it. How much did he like it? And was his joy caught on camera? You'll have to wait for that news story until another day. Guys, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Megan.
What a night.
Good to see you, Megan. Thank you.
All right, coming up next, Eric Bolling. He's got thoughts. First, though, as the cool fall breeze settles in, there's nothing better than wrapping yourself in pure comfort. Cozy Earth is all about turning your home into a sanctuary. There's the bamboo sheet set made from premium viscose from bamboo. These sheets are unbelievably soft. They get even softer with every wash. Plus, you're going to love how breathable and temperature regulating they are. But it's not just the sheets. Cozy Earth's women's stretch knit bamboo pajama set is another must-have. And for the guys, check out the new men's performance sleep shorts. Designed for comfort and breathability, they will keep you cool and cozy all night long. And don't forget the new puffy sheep slippers. Cozy Earth products are crafted with a commitment to quality that you can feel, backed by a 10-year warranty. Treat yourself to a little piece of heaven this fall. Go to cozyearth.com/Megan. Use that code MEGYN for up to 40% off your order. cozyearth.com/Megan. And don't forget to tell them I sent you in the post-purchase survey. Cozy Earth, wrap yourself in luxury this fall. Okay, joining me now is Eric Bolling. He's host of the Eric Bolling podcast. Eric, welcome back to the show. Your thoughts on tonight?
Well, I think, Megan, my thoughts have lined with your thoughts. I was watching X, and I think we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing the same debate where You know, I was saying Disney must be so proud of themselves because they got exactly what they wanted. They wanted a pre-scripted, almost Broadway-like production, and they got it. David Muir is a fantastic broadcaster. The problem is for us is that he is a terrible moderator. You mentioned you should do another debate. I agree with that because you're proving yourself to be tough on both sides. I'm not blowing smoke up anyone's skirt or anything like that, but this was a bias. I mean, fact-checking only Trump time and time again. Kamala Harris saying, I've never said I wasn't against fracking. I've never said I'd vote against fracking. I mean, there was no fact check. There was no clarifications. And then Megyn, when David Muir said, I don't hear sarcasm in his voice, and then turns to Kamala Harris and says, what do you think? And just gave her, you know, it's called a fat fastball right over the middle of the plate for her just to hit it over the left field fence. And she did. I do think, Megyn, and I didn't hear what some of your other guests were saying. I think I was listening to the last panel. I think they lean left a little bit, with the exception of Spicer. Not sure which way he leans, but I think they lean left, both of them. I do think she did get him to take the bait. Like, so I was watching. I didn't want him to say quiet. He told her to say quiet. That bothered me a little bit. I mentioned it. But I also saw Trump, who, instead of doing what he did with Joe Biden, which was very reserved and just picked him apart, Trump took the bait and went after her. Now, a lot of my friends who are very, very pro-Trump are saying, you know what? He did what I did because I'm mad. I'm pissed off that women, that men are playing in women's sports, that naked men in drag costumes are prancing in front of our children. And you really didn't see that in the debate, but she still represents that America, and Trump represents the common sense, wholesome, patriotic America. And you get mixed up in these debates and you just see who wins for the moment. I think I can't say he won. Okay. I can't say he won. On issues, he won, but the issues, he was great at the beginning on the economy and he was great at the end. And then ABC Disney just gave her a whole plate, a silver platter of things she could eat and chomp on and spit out. So it was biased, but he held his own. Let's call it that.
I don't know. I totally get why the Democrats say she won, and she did well for her, as I predicted. I mean, I told the audience, I'd gone back and looked at that Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence debate weeks ago, and I said she did well. You should know that she's going to do well. She's obviously good at memorizing lines, and it was very clear when she was just regurgitating her rehearsed bits. But I can't shake the feeling that people know when they're looking at a phony. They know that those bits were rehearsed. The overly emotional facial expressions that she was doing for the first 35 to 40 minutes made her look like off. She looked off, and she looked a little emotionally unstable to me. She couldn't stop with the personal insults. If Donald Trump had said half of the nasty things to her that she said to him on that debate stage last night, we'd be hearing from all the CNN anchors about how alienating and divisive he is, and how these Republican women aren't going to like that and they're going to vote against him. But not a peep when she does it to him, over and over, needling him personally. And so while, yes, she spat out her talking points and she did successfully bait him, I just think because of all those things, I cannot say she won. I'm not sure I can say Trump won either. Maybe Spicer's the closest with it's a draw. But in my conclusion is this doesn't move the needle for her.
So Tim Hogan, the guy who just had on, said something. I actually said that on a pre-show. I was doing a pre-show on X with Mario Nafalo's up-and-coming star. I said Trump should just answer what he wants to answer. Forget answering the debate moderator's questions because it's going to be biased. He should have just taken abortion, Charlottesville, and turned it back into the economy, the border, or crime, and just stay on those three and just go. It's a tactic. So many great debaters are able to take the question, start to answer it, and then flip it into where they want to go with it. He would have done, I think, far better. Can I give you a football analogy? Football season just started. This is a game where Trump was blowing the other team out. It's the Chiefs against whoever, Baltimore last week. They're blowing them out. He's killing them. They switched the quarterback, right? She comes in and throws a couple of touchdown passes. Now, she hasn't been a quarterback. She's just been a backbencher, but she gets lucky, throws some touchdowns, and everyone says, holy cow, Baltimore's going to beat the Chiefs. Not supposed to happen. Until the reality sets in, she doesn't know the playbook. you still have the rest of the game to finish. And here's where we are. We're halfway through the fourth quarter. It's probably tie score. Let's be honest. It's probably a tie score. But you never bet against Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter when you got the ball and it's a tie score. He will come on strong at the end. The problem is it took too long for them to get there with her. I think they played this game of let's let her get through the DNC convention and then we'll really go after her. I thought he should have just started just banging her on all the economy and inflation. When you back her into a corner on anything numbers, she has nowhere to go. She has no DNA, nothing up here to rely. Think back on high school algebra, anything. It becomes a vacant stare. Almost when Lester Holt said, "You haven't been to the border," and she's, "Well, I haven't been to Europe either." Ha ha ha. That's where she is on policy, but they just handed her so many get out of jail free cards.
That's right. And he played defense the whole time. And here's another disgusting aggravation. You know, this little nerdy, dweeby little man over on CNN named Daniel Dale, who does fact checks supposedly against both sides. He's super fair, Eric. Well, this guy decides to tell us how the falsehoods shook out between these two candidates. And here is his conclusion.
Jake, what stood out was that this was a staggeringly dishonest debate performance from former President Trump. Just lie after lie on subject after subject. By my preliminary count, Jake, Trump made at least 33 false claims, 33. By contrast, by, again, a preliminary count, Vice President Harris made at least one false claim, though she added at least a few misleading claims and a few more that lack key context. I think a lot of Americans say, well, all politicians lie. No major presidential candidate before Donald Trump has ever lied with this kind of frequency. A remarkably large chunk of what he said tonight was just not true. And this wasn't like little exaggeration, political spin. A lot of his false claims were untethered to reality. On abortion, saying every Democrat wanted Roe v. Wade overturned, though actually more than 80% of Democrats supported Roe. On crime, saying it's through the roof, though it's actually sharply down since early 2023. It's now lower than it was since Trump left office. On healthcare, saying he's the one who saved Obamacare, the law he actually repeatedly tried to overturn. On Kamala Harris herself, saying that a Howard University grad, Black Law Students Association president, had claimed that she wasn't black at one point. Frankly, I don't have enough time here to run through each specific Trump false claim. I urge people to go to our CNN website or our app to read our team's detailed fact checks on this and a whole bunch more.
Wow. Well, I don't even want to start with that. One. So
one from Kamala Harris. And I believe it's the fracking lie where she claimed that she had said she wasn't going to ban fracking, which she never said. She only said Joe Biden wouldn't ban fracking. She never reversed her plan and stated belief that it should be banned. And by the way, where was his fact check? Even Snopes has fact checked the find people on both sides lie and the bloodbath lie. Her claims about abortion, her claims about Trump and IVF, the Trump abortion ban line. She kept saying Trump's abortion bans. Trump has no abortion bans. Trump appointed 3 justices to the U.S. Supreme Court who overruled Roe and said this is a states' rights issue. There's no Trump abortion ban. Fucking Daniel Dale doesn't care about any of her falsehoods, the same as Lindsey Davis and David Muir.
It's shocking that he could say, you know, he did, though. He covered himself. He said at least 1 for Kamala Harris, which means it could have been 50. He didn't lie about that. I'm joking here. But one of the 2 areas where I think Trump really could have nailed her. When Afghanistan came up the second time, David Muir said, I know we talked about it before, but Afghanistan, how do where do you stand on the pullout? And she said, I continue to believe Joe Biden made the right decision. It was it was one of the worst military decisions the world has ever seen, let alone America. And I think Trump could have kept on her a little bit. I know he did a little bit, but there was an opportunity there that I think was wasted. And also, when the topic of Hamas and Israel came up, he really could have pounded. He could have driven the wedge through the 2 sides of Kamala Harris's mouth, the side that is trying to maintain the Jewish vote and the other side that's trying to maintain the state of Minnesota and Michigan vote with the Muslim population. They're on both sides. They've been flip-flopping across the board on this. And I didn't think he brought it home on that. I hope there is another debate. I hope the debate is some neutral zone.
How?
Digital.
Right.
Digital. I mean, it's the only place to go right now. Let's be honest, Megan. You and I come from the cable news world. Disney owns ABC. ABC owns the moderators. There's no question that the Disney board is wildly liberal. They want a Kamala Harris president. If you think that these people who make millions upon millions of dollars from talent all the way up to management aren't trying to protect their own ass and their own paycheck, you're out of your mind. They're going to do it. On the other side, let's be honest. Fox has a conservative board, maybe less conservative than it used to be, but it's still a conservative board with the exception of Paul Ryan. But they still lean in the other direction. Get out of that world. Get out of the world where you're beholden to corporate boardrooms and advertisers, and go to some neutral zone. Go to a digital space, Megyn Kelly, and pick another one. And talk. I don't know.
I'll tell you exactly. No, you know what? No one else. And this is not about a vanity project for me. I've hosted plenty of debates. But this is why it should just be me. It should be me alone, because who in the country has been harder on Donald Trump in presidential debates in a fair way, not like these moderators tonight, than me. I have proven that I will not give him a pass in debates and in interviews. And there's zero chance I will give her a pass.
I told this story on a show I was on prior to the debate. I said, I'm going out with Megyn Kelly later. And I said, Megyn Kelly should be the host, should be a moderator of these debates. Because who can forget in that famous moment where you were tough on Trump? Let's be honest, you were tough on him, but you weren't unfairly tough on him. And I can't imagine, you don't have to tell us, but I can't imagine the amount of input that you were getting from above and laterally and above from management and board members and whatnot, to push you in a direction. And you did what your heart told you to do. You were a journalist and you did what you were on this earth, put on this earth to do. And look, and it's been nothing but good. Again, I'm not trying to kiss your butt or whatever, but that's what we need. And we haven't had that. I will give Jake Tapper and Dana Bash credit for coming close to that.
They did fine.
I think they were.
Yeah, they did fine. They also brought up climate change, but not the cutting up of body parts and children. But they did fine. I mean, I would take that debate 10 times over what we just witnessed tonight. What does Trump do next? Because I don't think there's no other obvious debate. The only other one that he proposed was Fox, and she said no to it. And I noticed that in her, okay, I'll do another debate, she's not saying I'll go on Fox, because she knows what will happen when it's going. Fox would be neutral. They actually would not go easy on Donald Trump and hard on Kamala Harris, I don't think. But she's not going to do it. So what does Trump do now?
I think he agrees to another debate on a more neutral playing ground. Did you notice that this whole idea of muting the microphones only worked one way? Did you know? I mean, they never muted her microphone. They were muting Trump left and right. They let him speak if he wanted to, but she was never muted.
I heard her muted. I heard her muted a couple times. And she was a chatty Cathy. She wouldn't shut up. She couldn't control herself over there. She was very unsteady in the first half hour, and then it started to go downhill because the moderators shifted it. Whenever she was on the ropes, they would inject themselves and they would shift it. Oh, here's a little question on abortion for you. That'll make you happy. And you could see her with her dry mouth and her obvious nerves calm down once they brought her to the promised land.
And race. Now, if you poll America, what are the most important things to you right now? Cost of goods, fuel prices, inflation, crime, sending my daughter to school, hoping she doesn't get raped by an illegal immigrant on the way, or get a volleyball smashed in her face by a man who wants to be a woman. Those are the things that Americans care about. They don't care that Donald Trump once said, I don't know if she's black or not, because sometimes she says she is, sometimes she says she is not. That topic came up a little bit after abortion, and maybe they mixed in Charlottesville in the middle of that. So, they started out with the economy, and maybe that was a bait and switch, like, look over here, here's the shiny object. And they just went in for probably a full hour right into Kamala Harris's sweet zone, just served it up to her on a silver platter.
Yes, it was all of her favorite little lovelies rubbing all over her. January 6th, election denialism, climate change, abortion. Yes, bring it on. Yes. That's really what we witnessed. Eric, stand by. I've got to say goodbye to the SiriusXM audience because we are going to wrap at midnight sharp. I want to keep you for a couple minutes thereafter, if you don't mind, because I just have a couple points I want to make. We just got this soundbite in from Nicole Wallace. The media problem must be addressed in just a little bit more detail, so don't go away, okay? Can you stand by?
Sure.
Thank you, my friend. SiriusXM listeners, thank you very much for tuning in at this late hour. We appreciate you tonight and every night. We'll be back tomorrow at noon East on Channel 111 Triumph. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening. Okay, let's keep going, Eric. Okay, so the media, I'm genuinely distressed by it. Like, I genuinely feel like we've crossed a Rubicon here that cannot be uncrossed. The willingness to actually jump into the tank and swim and paddle for her tonight was absolutely egregious. And to me, it was shocking, even from an industry that we know is biased towards the left. Here was Nicole Wallace over on MSNBC. Listen to the soundbite, appearing to admit that it was 3-on-1. And this is a person who loathes Trump with the passion of 10,000 suns. Watch.
David Muir didn't hesitate to say, I went back and watched the tape. You didn't sound sarcastic to me when you said I lost by a whisker. Kamala Harris got Trump on three sides of whether or not he won in 2020. He said I won, and then he said, I said sarcastically that I lost by a whisker, and then David Muir ended it by saying, no, that wasn't sarcastic. So what the American people heard was Trump on three sides of the outcome of 2020. And David Muir and Lindsey Davis played an important role in that.
There it is. They certainly did. What an admission.
That was one topic, one comment. That sarcasm, that I didn't hear sarcasm throwing to Kamala Harris was, like I mentioned earlier, it was like one of the most egregious things I've seen. Right up there with your old friend Chris Wallace fact-checking Trump erroneously in one of the debates, saying that the Hunter laptop was a Russian misinformation campaign, and we now know it wasn't, but he stopped the debate in its tracks.
He shut it down.
He shut down Trump, and he was wrong. And the same thing happened with David Muir on what you pointed out earlier on the animals being tortured or eaten in Springfield, Ohio, and other places. Really, it's not just that one place.
Can I just show you? Let me just show you the sound bites on Springfield. Let's just show this. They made it sound like Trump is just some lunatic making this stuff up out of whole cloth. Here's what we've been seeing over the past couple of days. This is from Springfield.
And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them like.
Okay. And now, and on top of that, Springfield, Ohio Facebook post, warning to all about our beloved pets and those around us. My neighbor informed me her daughter's friend had lost her cat. She checked pages, kennels, and asked around, etc. One day she came home from work. As soon as she stepped out from her car, looked toward a neighbor's house where Haitians live, and saw her cat hanging from a branch like you would do to a deer for butchering, and they were carving it up to eat. I've been told they are doing this. They have been doing it at Snyder Park with the ducks and geese, as I was told that last bit by rangers and police. Please keep a close eye on these animals. You heard that guy. And now, do we have the Federalist report? Because they're out there with a report and the 911 call on. All right, we don't have the SOT. We can lay it in later, perhaps. But the Federalist has a report about as follows. Recording of a police phone call obtained by the Federalist revealing a local resident reporting a group of Haitian migrants carrying 4 geese in Springfield, Ohio on August 26th. Quote, I see a group of Haitian people. There was about 4 of them. They all had geese in their hands, the caller tells the public services dispatcher. The caller told the dispatcher he saw 4 migrants in total, 2 men and 2 women, each carrying a single goose. How many geese did they have? Asked the dispatcher. They each had 1. The caller says he spotted the Haitians carrying the geese at an intersection between Water and Warder Street, a location that does exist in Springfield and is confirmed in the police report later filed in the incident. This is all we have on the other side is this officer, a deputy director of public safety, Jason Villa, who told NPR, I think it's sad some people are using this as an opportunity to spread hate or spread fear. We get these reports that the Haitians are killing ducks in a lot of our parks, or the Haitians are eating vegetables right out of the aisle at the grocery store, and we haven't really seen any of that. It's really frustrating as a community. It's not helpful as we try to move forward. We haven't really seen any of that. So what? You haven't really seen any of that? What are you talking about? Because all you mentioned here was reports that they were killing ducks in a lot of your parks and that they're eating vegetables. You did not address the cat claim. You did not address the Federalist reporting that they had 4 of them and that it was called into 911. And you did not address the claim that at least in one case, a duck was beheaded. You only speak to that it's, hold on, how does he put it? A lot of our parks. So this is what you could call a non-denial denial. And that's what David Muir thought was an appropriate fact check tonight.
Not just once. He said it 2 or 3 times when Trump said, well, we'll see if that comes out differently later. It's like, no, I'm talking about this person, the one guy that you just mentioned. Meanwhile, there are reports and reports. It's all over the internet. I will give you an anecdotal story. And this is an absolute true story. I used to play professional baseball in the minor leagues. There were a lot of Dominican players who were drafted. They were young guys. They never went to college. We housed with them. We roomed with them in Bradenton, Florida for the Pirates. And they would kill cats and eat them. Honest to God, true story. It happens. It's the way of life in some countries. It's an accepted behavior. It's not here and it's not okay. But for someone to say all these reports and those there's 2 or 3 people who were at a town hall meeting talking about some of the things that were going on, that they're somehow not telling the truth or they're lying, that's ridiculous. And even further, more ridiculous is you have a presidential campaign that's very tight, very close. You have likely a single presidential election debate, and one of the moderators uses a shoddy fact check like that. Honestly, Megyn, that feels like someone came down from above, management, ABC or Disney, and said, if he brings up these cats, because it's bad, because it's everywhere. It's got the country kind of freaked out that these people are what they're doing. They probably said, make sure you stop him in his tracks, because he went back 2 or 3. If you listen back to the tape, he stopped Trump 2 or 3 times on the same topic, that's highly unusual. That's very unusual.
We have some of this queued up. Let's take a listen to SOT 8.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
She's laughing.
4 times.
4 times.
4 times David Muir jumped in. ABC News said, I just want to say, I'm not talking about TV, I'm talking about the city manager. 4 separate times he stopped Trump in his clarification, fact check, whatever you call it, and then throws it to Kamala Harris. Doesn't even let Trump get the rest of the thought out, and then throws it to Kamala Harris. That's probably, I would say that's probably the most biased interaction of the whole hour and 40-minute debate.
Because what we have at this point is a he said, he said. He gave more credibility to the city manager than he did to the woman who just posted on Facebook, than the person who called 911 as reported by the Federalist, than the people we just showed you who testified at the city meeting. David Muir decided that he would be the arbiter of truth and that he believed the city manager more than he believed those individuals. What did you do, David Muir, to make sure the city manager is a truth teller? Because his little denial sounds like somebody who is a woke leftist who's trying to run cover. I can't stand that this has devolved into hate and fear mongering about the migrants. Okay, how did you satisfy yourself that that's not a political hack, as Trump was suggesting, who's trying to run cover for a terrible thing that's happening in his city? I don't know what the truth is. And that is why I, as a debate moderator, would never have tried to settle the dispute. At a presidential debate, he made himself into Candy Crowley. That's what David Muir was doing over and over.
Megyn, I think he is the 2024 version of 2020 Chris Wallace, where he stopped Trump in his tracks and said Hunter Biden laptop story is Russian disinformation, misinformation, and it's BS, it's bullshit. It wasn't. It was true. And Chris Wallace was the final arbiter of what was true at the time or not, and he was completely wrong. I'm given that anecdotal experience I had with the Dominicans, I will tell you, there's a pretty darn good chance that there's illegal immigrants who are doing nasty things to animals, probably outside of Springfield, Ohio as well, probably in a lot of places that are just inundated with illegal migrants, because they come here, honestly, Megan, they don't assimilate. They don't come here to assimilate and be like us. They come here and they're nice for a while, and then all of a sudden they're doing things that they did in their home country. You see it everywhere. You see it everywhere. I talked to someone today about that. Like, women are being assaulted at a higher rate, an alarmingly higher rate, by these illegal immigrants because it happens in their home country and they get away with it there. They come here in our streets and they're doing the same damn thing. They're probably killing our animals, likely eating them as well. David Muir shouldn't have fact-checked him 4 times, not once, 4 times.
No.
The way Chris Wallace, and that was a pivotal moment in 2020. The Hunter Biden laptop story could have had a lot of weight in whether you were going to vote for Joe Biden or not.
If I had been David Muir and she was cackling over there in response to this allegation that Trump was making, which again is not made up, Trump is getting this from actual residents of Springfield who have been all over the media saying this, I would have turned to her and I would have said, irrespective of the cats and the dogs and the geese, madam, Americans are being killed. We have the story of Laken Riley, among others. We have little kids who have been attacked in pedophilic rapes. We have young girls who have been murdered, a 12-year-old down at the southern border. Illegal immigrants are murdering Americans. How dare you stand there and laugh? What are you laughing about? I mean, she got a complete pass on her inappropriate behavior because they're all Team Harris. If you don't believe me, take a look at John Karl. Is he chief White House correspondent? Is that his title, Steve Krakauer? His reaction, DC, whatever, I don't know what he is. He's high up on the political food chain at NBC. His reaction to the debate. Watch.
Part of the reason is Donald Trump really was not effective in bringing the debate to her. I agree with you. I think that he looked not just angry, but also rattled. And in contrast, Harris, who, again, much of the world doesn't know, Harris looked like she belonged on the stage, looked like she is somebody that could serve as president.
Yeah, I'm sure he wants that. He's a chief Washington correspondent.
Well, so I watched.
That hosted.
They did an hour lead up to the debate, ABC, and I happened to watch it because I wanted to see what they were.
It was egregious.
Oh my! How much fawning over Kamala Harris could John Karl possibly do? I mean, you mentioned Jeffrey Toobin earlier. It could have been a Jeffrey Toobin moment, practically.
And honestly, like the way they talked about Donald Trump, and this Lindsay Davis, she actually was one of the people pushing Trump went to this city and this city has KKK members. And that's basically why, he's going, is this some sort of an endorsement, like aligning Trump with the KKK because he went to the same town that Joe Biden went to, that where a KKK supreme wizard or whatever you call him lived. Watch this. This is old Lindsay Davis. Not old. It's like 3 weeks ago. This is the same person who moderated tonight's debate. Watch.
Former President Donald Trump is expected to go campaign in Howell, Michigan tomorrow. Many people are aware that a month ago in Howell, KKK protesters marched in the streets with the white robes on and suggested that they support Donald Trump. I'm curious if you make anything about that connection and him going in particular to Howell tomorrow.
It's amazing. She got picked.
Yeah, like I said, Megan, Disney owns ABC. ABC owns the talent. This was a trickle down from the Disney boardroom straight down, and we know how Disney feels about conservatives. We watch it. I watch it in Florida. I live in Florida. I watch it all the time. The fighting between DeSantis and Disney is nonstop. It's a wildly woke company, and Trump is the anti-woke candidate. And
Dana Walden is one of Kamala Harris's best friends.
Correct.
She's a woman who runs it, and she's one of her best friends.
If you think a Kamala Harris presidency won't be splashed with wokeism and a revibrance of the pride parades and the trans stuff, it's on its way, folks. It's on its way. She's going to make Joe Biden look like a normal president if she gets there.
Listen to this. listen to this, just in case you had any doubt about ABC's intention to take out Donald Trump tonight in an ambush. Not only did they put this woman who tried to link him to the KKK in as debate moderator and chose David Muir, who's hosted, according to the Media Research Center, the world nightly news show that is the most biased out of all three of them, NBC, CBS, or ABC, by far against Trump. Almost no negative stories about Kamala Harris, almost all negative stories about Donald Trump. But tonight, who do they book on Jimmy Kimmel following the debate in their big show? George Conway, Lincoln Project Never Trumper in chief, who earlier tonight tweeted out as follows: "This is the most brutal beatdown I've ever seen in a presidential debate. I love the Kamala, what the F is he talking about look. The way she looks at him, she shows that she's not afraid. She shows that he is a joke. Bravo. God bless our next president, Kamala Harris." That's who's on Jimmy Kimmel right now. This was an ambush. That's what he walked into tonight. And he emerged, once again, shot up a bit, but I think still strong and I think still well positioned to win this race.
You know, there's a cottage industry that's shot up since Donald Trump became president. It's the it's Trump derangement people. It's like the rhinos that were being escorted out of Washington, D.C. And then there's these people, these George Conways and Lincoln Projects and the other people who aren't kind of never really were conservative, but see no lane for them to be relevant other than to attack Trump as his attachment to Kellyanne Conway, or as these former Trump comms people, Alyssa Farah on The View, and the rest of them, Stephanie Grisham. These people used to work for Trump. And I know because I used to be in D.C., and they adored him when they worked for him. They adored him. And then somehow there's a job waiting for them to bash him on the way out once they don't work for him anymore. It's a little cottage industry. Yeah, I think he's beat up. But again, MEGYN, it's the fourth quarter. It's tied. Let's be honest, it's probably a tie game right now. Patrick Mahomes, Donald Trump has the ball, and never bet against Patrick Mahomes with the ball. Tie game in the fourth quarter ever.
Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, whose wife Brittany made the comment about Trump,
and he's good
friends with Taylor Swift. But now, okay, so we read this. We read Taylor's whole post earlier, so the audience knows what we're talking about. But she's endorsed Kamala Harris tonight, and amazingly said the thing that pushed her over the edge was her selection of Tim Walz because of his LGBTQ agenda. I'm going to go ahead and venture a guess. She's a know-nothing, that she knows absolutely fucking nothing about this issue. Does she know that he's bringing kids across the state line from other states whose parents don't want them to chop off their body parts, and he's having courts seize jurisdiction over them so that they can order that those be paid on the Medicaid dime in Minnesota? Without the parents' consent, minor children being pulled away from their loving parents so that Tim Walz can cut off their genitals? Taylor, did you know that? Are those your little fans? Are you in favor of your little 13-year-old fans in Minnesota or around Minnesota getting pulled into Minnesota to get their breasts chopped off and to be sterilized with puberty blockers straight into cross-sex hormones? Is that what you stand for, Taylor? Thank God my daughter's not a fan of yours, but if she were, that would be it. Here's Rick Grinnell. Taylor Swift does not let people comment on her public endorsement. She turned off comments on it, Eric. LOL. Typical of today's left. They can't tolerate dissenting views. So what do you make of the Taylor Swift endorsement?
Other than the fact that I'm concerned because my beloved Kansas City Chiefs, I used to love Travis Kelce, and I can't stand him now because the stupid thing he does with her. Here's the reality.
And the Pfizer.
She's going to move the needle. She's going to get people to vote for Kamala Harris.
I don't think so.
As ridiculous as this sounds, there are so, honestly, MEGYN, there are so many dumb voters. There's so many people who just look at a celebrity or someone like, or a musician, something especially as big as Taylor Swift, who go, if Taylor likes her, then so do I. I mean, look, Taylor Swift is probably responsible for 2 to 3% more female attendance and viewership for the NFL. Taylor Swift, one person. The NFL did a study. They were about 46% female, 54% male prior to the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce romance. And now it's probably 50-50, they say. So like it or not, and no sane football fan is going to listen to what Taylor Swift thinks, but she moves a zeitgeist needle, so to speak. And unfortunately, young people, oh man, it's just scary. It's just scary. I'm in New York City. By the way, I never want to be here.
I don't deny her power in the music
but,
industry, but I just don't think somebody's going to pull the lever for Kamala Harris because she told them to.
Let's hope not.
I just can't. That's just my armchair opinion. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about plenty of things, but I don't believe that. Here is what Kamala Harris and her team are doing tonight with a drone. There's some video of a drone with a message in the sky. It reads, Madam Vice President. Everyone's taking pictures. And then wait for it. The vice disappears. And we're just left with the Madam President.
Can I just comment on this whole media thing, this whole blitz? And you have to give them credit for this. They're being very creative. Almost every time I open my laptop, I got a Kamala Harris. I hate it. I got a Kamala Harris ad that place. They're putting it in very selective and smart locations. Her campaign has probably put together the best game plan for a quarterback who sucks. I'll use the football analogy one more time. She's incompetent. She doesn't know the playbook. She's not talented, but they've got the best playbook to beat the other team, and they're staying.
We're going to drag her into the end zone.
Right. Yes, they're figuring out the thing that they have, and they call it the brotherly shove instead of brotherly love, where quarterback gets the ball and the whole team pushes him forward, which used to be illegal. My point is they're finding the right places to gain ground, to gain, let's say, votes. Again, battle state. I will tell you, I believe this election is coming down to Pennsylvania. That's why Trump should have stayed on fracking for an hour, because it was Pennsylvania that was going to get hurt the most by her fracking, original OG fracking ban that she walked back recently. But that's where I believe this election will be won or lost in Pennsylvania, and fracking matters to those folks.
Here's the final indignity of ABC. Guess who else is booked on Kimmel tonight? The bookend to their debate. Not just George Conway, Jane Fonda.
Okay. Yeah, it's anti-American.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable what Trump walked into tonight. He should never do that again. Republicans should never do that again. There should never be another general election, presidential debate, or Republican primary debate on ABC News, ever, period. And if any candidate agrees to that, they should have to answer to Republican voters why they intentionally tried to sink their chances by agreeing to go into such a lion's den. It's just, the deck is stacked and there's only so much any human can do. Trump, of course, is claiming victory anyway. We'll see. We'll see some polls. We'll see. I've got my doubts about whether her exaltation and exuberance is going to last for very long. Eric, great to see you.
You too, Megan. Congratulations. Great show, by the way.
Thank you very much. Oh, and thanks to all of you. I'd love to know what you think. You've heard what I think and what our guests think. Just send me an email. We have well over 1 million watching us on YouTube and plenty more on podcasts and so on. So I'd be delighted to get your thoughts before we go on the air tomorrow. We'll read some of them. You can email me at MEGYN, MEGYN, @MeganKelly.com. And just let me know what you thought. Who won? How did she do? How did Trump do? Does it move the needle? And what'd you think of the Taylor endorsement? And what'd you think of ABC? We're back tomorrow. We'll have more coverage. I'm sure the media meltdown in her favor will be disgusting and sycophantic between now and then. We'll have that covered for you as well. And we'll go over what the snap polls are saying as well.